what I'm looking at is what it points to in terms of the relationship between the executive and the legislature.
Oh yes, yes.
Is it pointed to, you know, things getting to things degenerating? I mean, amongst them, or what exactly do you read from this?
Interpersonal relationship, yes. The president needs to do a lot in that area. Don't forget, if you look at it very critically now, it's as if the opposition is getting the upper hand in the House of Rep. And if you dilute the numbers of the representatives in the House of Rep with the senators, distinguished senators in the House of Senate, it will be so clear that the opposition will have the upper hand. Okay, but that shouldn't be an issue, because we also have a federal system in the United States from where we have decided to copy our own. And don't forget, even in that country, an advanced country, you find the opposition in charge of the Senate. At times, the opposition actually, do we really have opposition? The party not in power, controlling the Congress. Now, like Obamacare, for example. I mean, that has not prevented the President Obama from presenting his healthcare program. And by partisan agreement, that is the sagacity expected of the president of any nation. The capacity to ride over opposition, to consider yourself as father of all, and to see that the nation moves, regardless of your personal convictions.
Okay, so actually, when he said he has a rhetorical question, if truly we do have opposition, yes. Well, that's maybe perhaps another thing. But I've been reading some of your works. You wrote The Politics of Budget Making in Nigeria.
Exactly.
Well, I don't know if Martha saw that when she was actually asking you that particular question on a little bit of politics in the budget presentation and budget making. Yes. Perhaps let's talk more on that, because now you just draw attention to what happened in the United States, and we're getting to see what is happening back home in the country. The minister said, surely if the news that we just saw is anything to go by, we'll be presenting the budget today. That's before Christmas now. What about the politics of budget making? How does it help the nation? Because we're talking about nation first before, individuals or selfish interest.
Oh, you're correct. National interest should be far above personal consideration when you are talking of the issues of the economy of a country, especially a developing economy like ours. And the politics of budget should be played in such a way as to ensure that the ultimate gain and the benefit of development flow to the ordinary man. Now, politics actually generally, experts, intellectuals have theorized. They've agreed that it's actually the determination of who gets what, where, when, the authoritative allocation of values. Oh yes, but in our situation in Nigeria here, politics tend to be the precursor of development. It shouldn't be. Politics should follow development, not development following politics. But what we've been doing here is that if, for example, we have a contractor who is actually sympathetic to the opposition, but can actually do the job, politicians will decide to still award a contract against him in favor of his competitor. Now, the politics of budget in Nigeria has been, in the last 13 years, has been such that it's high time the presidency began to work out a situation in which the National Assembly is permitted to have its full share of authority over the budgetary processes.
How do you mean?
For example, issue of benchmarks. We do not need to politicize benchmarks. If oil has been selling above $100 per barrel, and the House of Reps says 79, and then the Senate 75.6, and then the President says 74.5, that should not be too far. Getting a middle line in between these three statistics could achieve, could get us somewhere, and we could have saved valuable 2 months. 2 months. Don't forget, the budget proposal had been ready in the Federal Ministry of Finance since October, and that's salutary, but could not be presented until maybe tomorrow or the day after. But that's not good enough. So the politics of budgets will be such that the National Assembly and the presidency should, at least before October, agree on the benchmarks first. Agree on the fundamentals of the budget. The total barrels per oil to be exported, the price to be fixed, the issues to do with the inflation rate, the GDP in respect of our amortization of debts, debt to GDP ratio, all these things should have been said before we begin to talk about presentation of the budget. And we should be able to arrive offshore over any disagreements in the areas of constituency projects, for example.
Are we also thinking of our budgeting system here, perhaps the yearly budgeting system that we have operated over time since independence?
Yes.
Looks like it hasn't actually worked well for us if we're having these unnecessary delays.
Yes.
Are we also thinking of having maybe a 4-year budgeting system? Tell us the difference between having a 4-year budgeting system and what we operate in presently.
Nothing can be better in this country for now than institution in which we have a multi-year budgeting system. Don't forget our MTEF, as provided by Section 18(1) of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, expects us to set revenue and expedition limits for the next 3 years, but then expects us to set the budget only for 1 year. So you now have, there's no synergy, therefore, between the MTEF and the Appropriation Act. So the Appropriation Act goes for 1 year, the MTEF, upon which the Appropriation Act is supposed to be predicated, for 3 years. So you have a disconnect, and such a disconnect should be resolved at the level of ensuring that the budget goes for multi-year system. I would suggest 3 years, so that it can be in tandem with the MTEF recommendations, and of course the fiscal strategy paper. Yes, that way, of course, in addition, you will expect contractors to be able to know what will be the revenue backing for all contracts that shall have to be presented in the next 3 years. Another thing is that we settle the issue of deficit in the budget. Deficit of the budget, deficit financing is a critical issue. It's not an issue you set only for 1 year. You'll be able to look at your deficit financing over a period of 3 years, so that you do not try to balance the budget every year. It is voodoo economics, trying to say that we should save money at a time when you need critical issues that has to be settled in the area of infrastructure. That doesn't gel.
Yeah,
What actually gels.
If you also look at what the Ministry of Finance is saying, they also do make sense, that because the only thing we depend on will seem to be crude oil, whose price is extremely volatile.
Yes.
We also need to put money aside to prevent ourselves from international shocks. We cannot continue to be susceptible to whatever it is that the price of oil is saying, and so we should keep it safe as much as possible.
That would make perfect sense. If the ECA, the excess crude account, is made subject to auditing, made subject to oversight, the oversight authority of the National Assembly. But you save money, huge sums of money, almost at times equal to 1/3 of the total income of the Federation. You save into an account on which only the Minister of Finance and the President of Nigeria has authority. That is improper. It's against the spirit of Section 162, sub 1 and 2 of the CFR 1999. Because it means that there's a great latitude, great discretionary authority of the Minister of Finance to spend money without having to be subject to the National Assembly Oversight Authority. And
but our account has been a subject of controversy.
Oh yes, an account that's actually not backed by any law.
Then why are we still running it?
We are running it because this is our country. This is a country in which some people can just go on with what is illegal and nobody calls them to question.
Okay, now the issue with the 2014 budget has been the MTEF and the fiscal
strategy paper. Yes.
Strategy paper. Now that has been the issue.
Yes.
We're running an account that is illegal. We have issues with the MTEF and the fiscal strategy paper.
Yes.
How do we reconcile these issues? You talked about having an agreement between the executive and the legislature at least by October.
Yes.